We do it with people and we do it with AI. So right now it's human-led with AI help. And that makes our jobs much easier and faster and much more scalable. I can't stand blanket statements in social because it depends on your company, on the industry, on your buying audience. Because they were only working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, dealing with the negative conversations, they had no idea. They were leaving money on the table, essentially. I hate your ink. I hate this and that. This is stupid. I pay for the monthly subscription to your ink thing and I've had it. Like, they're upset, right? They're just letting it all go. Epson didn't respond. HP, their competitor, who's likely using competitor social listening, came into that and
My name is Jochem van der Veer. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called TheyDo, the journey management platform for business decision-making. We raised over $50 million and are growing globally. Our enterprise customers include Ford, J&J, the Home Depot, and Pfizer. I mean, wherever you look, understanding customers is key to staying ahead. But in order to do this at scale, aligning so many different teams with the customer journey is incredibly hard, but it is possible. I really wish this podcast existed before we started our company because so many companies are organizing around journeys and there's so much to learn. So in order to share what I'm learning, what I'm hearing with our community, I meet with industry experts. And in my video podcast, I'm here to explore the world of business strategy, design, and journeys, customer journeys, to really get an understanding of how leaders are changing their way in their business. So let's dive into the show. So my guest today is Brooke Sellas. She's shaping the future of digital marketing through social intelligence. And as an award-winning CEO, she leads B Square Media, a boutique agency redefining social care for brands like Brother International, Miele, BCU. You can dive into her insights through her book, Conversations That Connect. If you haven't read it, highly recommend it. And her thought leadership on CMS Wire or her expert-led courses at the University of California are excellent. So today I'm going to scratch my own itch a little bit and dig in with Brooke on tying social to experience intelligence at the enterprise. So Brooke, I'm very happy that you could join me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to, I guess, quell your itch.
Nice. Well, that sets us up for a lovely conversation. So I want to start with maybe like a punchy statement. So social has changed. It used to be about content. Mm-hmm. Now it's about conversation. I mean, duh, but it's a big change.
It is.
Not a lot of companies really get this. So walk me through what is in your head and what should we be thinking about when we say social today at the enterprise? Like, everyone thinks it's about posting a ton of stuff on all these channels, and we have more channels. But what is it really? 2025, the time we're recording. So indulge us, please.
Yeah. Well, I think it's easy to think of social media as content, right? Because that's what we've been doing. Since the dawn of social media, brands have come in and we took it away from conversation. You know, ultimately, think about Facebook. It was meant for college students to have those conversations. And now it's a giant company that has stakeholders and it has to make money. And brands were a part of that play. But brands came in and used it as a marketing channel for content distribution. So that's the way we've always thought of social. We need to post X amount of times a day or week. We need to make sure we're sharing these things. We've got to update, we've got to update everybody on our newest products and our newest features on our latest sell. And that's not wrong, but I would say it's antiquated. Because if you think of social media in 2025, it really has gone back to conversations. And from a business standpoint and from an enterprise standpoint, what that means is the conversations that you as a brand have with your customers and your would-be customers, your fans and followers. I don't like to say fans and followers because I think that's a vanity metric and I hate vanity metrics. So I like to call fans and followers customers and would-be customers.
So who should own social then? Like, where does it sit in a company? Like, to tackle another spicy topic right off the get-go.
That is a real spicy topic because, we work with a lot of enterprise-sized brands at B Squared Media. And what we've seen is that this is very disjointed. Sometimes social customer care sits with social media if you have your own social media department. And that makes sense. Sometimes it sits with marketing. Sure. Okay. Sometimes it sits with companies who have a customer experience department or a CXO. That makes a lot of sense to me. Sometimes, though, social media sits with the comms department, which is maybe why we're heavy on the content, not so much on the conversation. It can also sit with PR again, right? We're not putting the customer first with PR. We're putting ourselves first. We're telling our story. So I think that mismatch in corporate, and this is just the way it's set up, right? I wish we could change it, but this is what is. I think that's why it's so difficult for brands to realize that social has changed from being a content platform to being a conversation platform.
So how should we be thinking about conversation? Like you mentioning fans and followers as a vanity metric. So, okay, we're going to measure conversations then. But that's not the end, or maybe that's not even the start. So let's start with a good example of a brand that is nailing the conversational style social that you think is exemplary for what we mean. And I don't think you're going to give me examples of brands that are just accidentally posting a wonderful campaign and then people are reacting like very visually, emotionally to it. I don't think that's what you mean. So what would be a good example of like leading through conversation on social?
Those are great. And I think there's an absolute place for storytelling. We have to know and use our customers' emotions in our marketing. I think a lot of brands are still behind on that too. But we'll put that aside. The brands that I see really embracing this conversational approach for a lot of what I'm seeing, for the most part, I guess I'll say, are makeup brands. And so I'll use Bloom as an example. They will say things to their audience like, my nighttime routine is wash face, apply eye cream, apply serum, apply moisturizer, go to bed, or something like that. Yes or no. And then people will come back and be like, no, absolutely not. It's steam your face first, or it's wash your face last, or whatever it is. They're getting their customers and would-be customers involved in these conversations that are adjacent to the brands. And it seems fun and innocuous. A lot of people might tell you, oh, that's gamification. Okay, sure, it could be. But the smart brands are actually using that type of conversational content to collect voice of customer data. Because if I understand my customers and my would-be customers' desires, wants, needs, hopes, dreams, I can much more easily sell to them. So yes, it's fun. Yes, it's gamification. Yes, it's conversational and using social the way it's meant to be, but it's also really savvy because if you're doing it correctly, you're collecting this voice of customer data, and with our method that we use, you're also noting places where churn can happen, right? So churn intent and sales or, acquisition intent. So intent signals to buy, let's say. So it's not just mining for voice of customer data, it's mining for acquisition and retention conversations, which then helps you quantify those conversations and get to return on conversation, as we call it, or return on investment.
I'm guessing this is not the typical comms team that is driving this for Bloom. So what in terms of like setting this team up for success? Who is driving this? And can you also give an example of how to incentivize the right VOC program or setup to help the customer experience team to get those insights? Because often we're incentivized for acquisition, right? Or like just eyeballs in the awareness stage. But
yes,
what you're saying is like, no, they sound very intentional to drive insights from their customers. So
yes,
who is driving this in the company? And then how does this tie back to their actual VOC listening programs that they've set up?
Yeah. So I'll give you the example of our clients. They have outsourced, obviously, to us. And for the most part, we would report to the VP of social or the VP of marketing, right? It's usually social or marketing that we sit inside of. And then we deploy what's called a care framework. And that care framework looks like this. The C we just discussed, right? We have to create conversational content that leads to the soliciting of opinions and feelings, right? We're sharing kind of fun opinions and feelings, and sometimes serious, right? Depending on the brand. And then they're enticed to share opinions and feelings back. That's how we get to voice of customer data, right? We've got to get past cliches and facts. We've got to get to how people feel or what they think about XYZ, right? The next two letters, A and R, are acquisition and retention. So this is where intentionally, inside of those conversations that we are getting people to get involved in, we are looking for points of acquisition and points of retention. So for instance, if someone comes along and says, do you have this in my size? Do you ship to Canada? These are sales intent or acquisition type questions, right? They have interest in buying, maybe even intent. We might need to explore that a little bit further, right? But we're going to tag that conversation as such. If somebody comes through and says, hey, where's my order? It was supposed to be here last week, or hey, you sent me the wrong size. That's a retention conversation. That is a moment of churn. We have a chance to save the customer if we deal with this correctly, right? And typically they want to stay on their channel of choice. They've gone to social media to make this conversation with you or make this complaint with you or ask this question with you because that is their channel of choice. They are signaling, this is where I want to have this conversation with you. I don't want you to send me to email. I don't want you to send me to phone. This is where I want to have the conversation. And so you want to try to meet the customer where they are and have that conversation on their channel of choice and solve that conversation on the channel of choice if you can through acquisition and retention measures. And then E stands for engagement. If we are doing all of these things, we can look at engagement in a much deeper way that leads to more of that voice of customer data, right? So we are first looking at those conversations a little bit greedily, if I'm being honest, because we're looking for acquisition and retention. I need to quantify to the C-suite as quickly as possible what this means for our bottom line. Can we save this many customers, which equals this many dollars, right? We can look at customer lifetime value and understand what we've saved there. Or can I close someone on social and bring in revenue that way?
So how do we do this on there's a campaign. Bloom is sending out like these super low-key questions on their rituals, and then conversation is going on. But I imagine customers are not all saying, where's my order on that thread, right?
Right.
So
no,
we have a difference between like poking and getting that.
Yeah. You've got to collect that voice of customer data. So in that conversation, you're looking for signals, right? We talked about acquisition and retention, but a signal also could be brand love. A lot of what we see when we first start working with customers, that they're so inundated with the volume of conversation that they have, that they're only responding to the negative comments because obviously they want to take care of those customers first. And that makes so much sense. But when you start looking at the conversations as a whole, you also see a lot of brand love. You also see a lot of what we call UGC, user-generated content, right? These are people who are advocates and advocating for the brand, and they just need they need more than a like, right? We want to show them they're listening. Yes, we're going to like their comment or whatever, but we also want to reply back. Because what we've seen is when we reply back to those positive messages, those people feel better about conversing with us in the future. They keep conversing with us. And not only do they keep conversing with us, their brand affinity grows. So now we're looking at turning potential customers into customers into fans, right? And when those customers are fans, they're doing word of mouth marketing for us on our behalf. So all roads lead to good things when you're deploying this care approach. And yeah, sometimes it's just as easy as like, no, you're wrong. I do it this way. And you're like, great, that's so fantastic, Brooke. Thanks for weighing in, right? It's not always like a crazy, like sirens are going off, like, get this done. Sometimes it's just a really easy answer, but we're conditioning that conversation to happen. And one of the reasons why this is so important too is that younger shoppers, so Gen Z shoppers, now look at online conversations, these conversations that brands are having with their would-be and current customers on social media, and they weight them just as high or higher than online reviews. So they don't really use online reviews the way someone like me, who's Gen X, does, right? I'm always reading the reviews. That's the first thing I do. I was literally doing it this morning. Like, well, let me check the reviews and make sure if I'm going to like this, right? That's not what Gen Z does. They're more so looking at those conversations on social, seeing how you reply as a brand, kind of looking at the temperature of your audience, and then deciding if they want to jump into the conversation and or buy from your brand.
Right. So you're saying like the actual threads behind the campaigns, the posts, the reels, that's actually where people are assessing the quality of a brand. And they ignore the reviews, but that's actually where the new reviews are being reviewed.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I'm saying, right? It's all about the conversation that you're having, the conversations that you're having on social with your customers and would-be customers. I also think if you think about social this way, it's really easy to let go of the whole fans, followers. I still get calls all the time like, well, I'm calling you because I want to get another 10,000 followers within the next 30 days. And I'm like, we're not the partner for you, because I don't want you talking to 10,000 new followers. I want you talking to 3 new potential customers, right? I don't want you to build a follower base. I want you to build a customer base on social, because if the more we think about it that way and we put the customer front and center and we have that customer experience mindset with our social, the better we can get at actually proving a return on social media, which, by the way, has been the age-old debate as long as social media has existed, right? It doesn't do anything. It doesn't have an ROI. Well, it does, but you have to set up the systems to use it that way.
So talk to me about ROI. Like, CARE is a wonderful framework, but you can't be doing everything all at once, all the time, always on, right? You have to pick. So when you want to prove out the ROI, or there's a specific goal you have in mind, like how do we think about defining what matters, what is the priority, and how do we are letting our teams focus on the right things?
Yeah, so we really lean on the A and the R, so the acquisition and the retention conversations. So I'll give you some examples. We asked our clients, well, we always ask every client when they onboard, how much of your conversation on social do you think is going to be acquisition versus retention, or gain versus retain? Every client that we've ever worked with has said that the acquisition or the sales support part of the conversations will be 5% or less of the total conversation happening on their social pages. And what we find every time with the clients that we end up working with is that they have at least 20% acquisition happening on all of their social channels. So then let's just use whole numbers, because I'm not a mather, I'm a marketer, right? So let's just say that we go out there and that acquisition conversation equals 100 conversations, and that their product costs $10. Well, then I could very easily multiply 10 times 100 and tell that client that they have a potential revenue, right? There's potential for a revenue through these sales support questions and conversations happening online of $1,000. Right? Obviously, we're usually talking about millions and not thousands, but I'm not a mather. So now when I can quantify to you, hey, we've got $1,000 worth of conversations sitting out here, they're like, well, go sell it, go close the deal, right? So that's part of what we do. Social selling is baked into social customer care. And that's when we go out and we say something like, I'll give you an example. Somebody comes through, we have a printer brand who's a client of ours. Somebody comes through and says, hey, is your printer compatible with Alexa? That is an interest signal, a sales interest. It's not intent, right? Because they're just asking a research question, right? They're kind of in that consideration phase of buying. So we'll say something like, yes, it is. And here's a video on how it works. So check it out and let us know what you think. 9 times out of 10, people go watch that video and they don't come back to the conversation. But if they do come back to the conversation and they say something like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. Oh my gosh, I had no idea it was that good. Now we have intent. So we could say something like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you loved it. Isn't it amazing? And since you've been so cool or whatever, right? Some little compliment or kind thing. Here's a promo code 1234. Use it, and when you buy the printer, we'll send you a free ink pack, or you'll get free shipping, or whatever it is. Well, now they have a sense of urgency. They have a reason to buy. And once they use that promo code, which they're going to do to get the discount, that money is automatically attributed to social care. So now we know, okay, out of the $1,000 of all of the potential conversations we have, we closed $900. Does that make sense?
If you're enjoying this conversation, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast channel and leave a review. It makes all the difference. The Experience Edge podcast is where I interview business leaders, CX pioneers, and the best designers who share their insight on creating business impact, having an edge on the customer experience. Do you want more exclusive content and behind-the-scenes access? Check out the Experience Edge podcast on YouTube and LinkedIn so you don't miss a thing. Now let's get back to the conversation.
100%. How do we manage this at scale? Like, it's so easy to think like, okay, fine, now with AI, we're gonna automate and augment the entire experience. But you also need some good human judgment still in this, right? Can we fully automate this or even turn this agentic, or is this actually something you have to do with people? How are you thinking about this?
We do it with people and we do it with AI. So right now it's human-led with AI help. And that makes our jobs much easier and faster and much more scalable. Do I think AI can take over this whole process? Probably, potentially. What I worry about is, and you've seen it time and time again, right? We've seen it with Canada Air. We've seen it with Duolingo. We've seen it with Workday. A lot of companies who are jumping in and putting in AI without that human oversight are finding themselves in hot water. And so right now, the answer is, please do not let AI take this over because you might end up in hot water yourself. I also think that AI is wonderful and we use it for frequently asked questions. So these are questions that like maybe people come through and ask your brand all the time. Like say you're a bank. Where's the nearest ATM? I need to change my password. What's my balance, right? These are some frequently asked questions that a bot could answer 24/7 with 100% accuracy. But when someone comes through and says something like, should I refinance right now because the rates are still high? This is a more complex situation. And because it has to do with finance, which we found, the customer really doesn't want to talk to a robot about this. They want that human connection and that empathy. They want to talk to that person who's been through this a million times, or maybe help them refinance their house last time. So it's situational, but I would say bots are great for basic. So bots equal basic, but anything that is beyond an FAQ, right? When we triage, we call these greens, yellows, and reds. Greens are the FAQs. Anything that's a green, AI can absolutely be used for. Anything that's a yellow or a red, the human really needs to be a part of it. Otherwise, we see frustration grow. And when frustration grows, we see churn happen faster. And that's what we're trying to prevent.
Are brands scared to make a mistake, like one tweet, one wrong answer can lead to PR disaster, as you gave the examples, right? So the anxiety is real. So how do we actually make it less scary for leaders to bring AI in the mix, but doing it in the right way for their customers?
I think to me, it means bringing in a company who can help you. Like if you don't have an internal person who's an AI expert, then outsource to someone who is. By the way, I have people who do this. If you actually need help with this and you're listening, reach out and let me know. But they can help you understand how to implement AI in a way that keeps the humans front and center. I have a hair framework that I do when we talk about AI. I just built an AI course, one of the courses that I teach for a $40 billion scientific brand. We use a framework with that brand that literally makes sure the human is there from front to back and everywhere in between. And so the case study for using AI and teaching this company's employees about AI isn't, hey, here is this thing that's going to replace you. Give all of your work to it to be more efficient. It's confidence. We want you to have curiosity with the AI so that the end goal for you as a human user is confidence. My friends at Trust Insights, an AI company, have the 5P framework, and their framework's also just amazing for thinking about how to implement AI with their 5P process, which puts people first. A lot of people run straight to the tool, right? Like, well, we're going to use ChatGPT to do this thing. And you didn't think about any sort of processes or systems or people throughout that. You've just started with the tool. Well, the tool should be the actual last step in your decision to use AI. There's a lot of other things that you have to figure out first. So, I mean, this could be a whole other episode all by itself.
It's fascinating, right? When you're looking at what Klarna did, right? They fired basically their entire support staff, let everything run by AI, and it backfired.
Yeah.
But they're rehiring now, but you can't tell me that they rehired everyone. They probably rehired like 40% of them.
Yeah.
So that's like a 60% productivity gain, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And that sounds very reasonable, right? For your green, orange, red bubbles. It's like, I'm sure Klarna has a lot more green bubbles. Like, where's this? Can I pay later? Or I missed a payment or whatever it is. Like those smaller questions.
Yeah.
But it sounds like 40 to 60% could be done by AI today, given the capacities today. Would you agree, or do you think it's more or less?
Oh, no, I totally agree. I think around 40% feels right to me. And I think that's going to grow. Look, I think AI is obviously growing by leaps and bounds. I think we're going to see that grow. However, I still think there's going to be a human need for... Listen, this is what we go to social for, right? Think about what is the reason you and me as people, as human beings, go to social media. It's to connect with other people. And so if we try to take that side of doing business on social out of it, if we take the human out of it, we're doing ourselves and our customers a disservice, right? Because they're literally going there to connect with people. Yes, if they can get something faster and they're okay with getting that from AI, great, use it. But also know your customers, right? If you're dealing with, say, maybe your customer or audience base is mostly boomers, I would be very careful about using AI a whole lot in the things that I do. Like, know your audience and know how they feel about AI. Look, marketers, every report that comes out about marketers and AI, we're all over it. We're salivating, slobbering everywhere to become AI first. But when you look at consumers and how they feel about AI, they're much more cautious. They are not anywhere near as far along as we are as marketers with trusting and wanting AI to be a part of the process. So again, I think this goes back to making sure that the customer is always at the front of your mind. What are we doing for the customer with AI that the customer will feel like is a win? And if you can't answer that, AI is not the answer.
Let's geek out on the tooling a little bit if you want, because this is interesting to me because I work with a lot of enterprise companies, right? My team works with them, and there's a big social listening component to all customer experience strategies.
Yes.
But there's 1,000 conversations happening at the same time. Not all feedback is treated equal or should be treated equal. Like, how are we making sure that we're first and foremost pulling all that in? And second, how do you think about tying that to all the other places where you're listening to customers, getting feedback from them, doing interviews with them, having support conversations with them on the phone and email? And how are we thinking about marrying that all up? Like, what is the best of the best that you've seen?
I love that. So first and foremost, I'm a huge proponent of social listening and gathering social intelligence. I mean, this is another thing that's changed about social media, I guess, if we think about it this way. Social media monitoring, which is what most companies are doing, is very reactive, right? You're waiting for someone to come tag your brand, like at you, like at Nike. Hey, I love my Air Jordans, right? That's something that you would have come to your inbox as a native notification. But that's reactive. Or if they come comment on our post, we're putting out those conversational posts and they respond. This is great, but it's still reactive, right? If you want to be proactive, you have to use social listening. And social listening allows you to go out into the ether and listen for instances of your brand, of your industry, and of your competitors. So that's the super simple, universal social listening strategy that we use for all of our clients. BIC, brand, industry competitors. And yeah, there's a lot of conversations that are coming in through this. And part of what's so wonderful about AI, right? The good part of AI is it's helping us filter through all of these conversations and realizing what's worthy or not worthy based on trigger words. So we can set trigger alerts or trigger keywords. And essentially, this looks at sentiment as a part of the conversation. So is this positive, neutral, negative? Obviously, if it's negative, we want that surfaced right away for churn to hopefully save churn intent. And then it can also look at other keyword factors to look at something that may not be a match. There's also query. This could be a whole other conversation too, but there's also like query building inside of social listening. There's a lot of negative string keywords that you need to put together so that you're not getting, I'll give you an example. We worked with an e-bike company at one time, and the e-bike company's name was Cowboy.
I know it, Brand. I think a lot of people, I'm in Amsterdam, right? A lot of people are driving the Cowboy, not a Movis.
So there's you can imagine putting in social listening keywords for Cowboy, right? You're going to get a lot of noise coming through on Cowboy that has nothing to do with Cowboy, the e-bike brand name. So negative keywords are really important to what you're doing. I think every social media team, if you are a company that has social media, I don't care where it sits or what you call them or who they are, you need at least one dedicated social intelligence person. And the social intelligence person should be able to do things like social listening, to be able to analyze the data that's coming through that social listening data. So voice of customer information, sentiment. They should be able to know how to filter out the noise if they start to see something bubbling up. This is your person who's kind of like left brain, right brain on steroids. They're a unicorn, right? I mean, I get what I'm telling you. But with that science brain, with AI as a helper, helping you decide what's important in all of these conversations that are coming through, you can easily turn around and then I could say like, hey, what are our top 3 customer concerns this month for our products? And they can spit them out immediately. 1, 2, 3. What are our top 3 brand love moments this month? 1, 2, 3. They can spit them out. I mean, it's extracting the signal from the noise and being able to tell a story that helps you take action. So it's not just the beautiful story, which we love as marketers, right? When we're reporting, we're like, oh, it's such a beautiful story. I love that too. But really, I want the story to be able to help me take action. How is that story going to help me save more customers and save the bottom line, or make more customers and add to the bottom line?
How is the delta between finding those top loved product or top mentioned product features, right? Or love moments, as you call them. How does that stack up to all the other sources of data, feedback that we're getting into? Is social always right on the money? As in, whatever the top 3 is this month is pretty consistent with what we're seeing across other channels where we're listening to customers? No. Is that completely different? Like, how are you thinking about what is timely versus like timeless, if you will? That's
a great question. Yeah. And so to your point from earlier too about email and phone, sometimes email, phone, and social all have different stories. Right. And that's not fun, but that's important. Like, we're not throwing out email and phone to focus on social. And this is why channel of choice is so important. Figuring out your customer's preferred channel of choice is critical. I think very few brands do this. It is not easy. I get that. But figuring out if your customer prefers to email you, to call you, or to hook up with you on social is really important. Then if those stories don't match, that's okay, because there are 3 different mediums, right? And so what you'll likely find is that you have 3 different segments or 3 different ICPs, ideal customer profiles, that have self-selected into that channel, right? So boomers may be calling you all the time. Gen X, that's me, and it's not me. I don't do email. I do social, but they might be using email, or maybe it's boomers and a little bit of Gen X or older Gen X. Maybe younger Gen X and millennials and beyond are on social. So you have different segments of your audience that might self-select into these different channels. Okay, well, this is why we need omni-channel marketing and omni-channel analytics, right? Because people are going to tell you where they want to live. And unfortunately, you have to be there. Oh, I want to say real quick as an aside, you mentioned earlier, and we have more channels popping up every day. One of the great things about the CARE framework is you can go out right now and audit all of your social channels for the A and the R. You'll see immediately where most of the A and the R acquisition and retention conversations are happening. Those are the channels you need to be active on. People have self-selected in there. You don't need to go jump on TikTok if no one's on TikTok. And furthermore, even if you have 5,000 followers on TikTok, but none of those conversations are acquisition or retention, bye-bye TikTok. That's how you cut budget, right? You pay attention to the channels where your customers, your buying audience is talking to you and having those conversations. I digress. So then you've got these channels, and sometimes they do tell the same story because maybe your customer segments just really, this is where I think it speaks to the product itself, right? If all three channels are telling me that the top yucky product is our coffee machine, we seriously need to dig in and find out what's happening with our coffee machine. By the way, I do have a coffee machine story if you want to hear it.
Sure, let's bring it on. What is the coffee machine story?
So
I hope it relates to this.
We work with the luxury appliance brand, and they have a luxury audience, an affluent audience, because their products are very expensive. And normally when we launch a product, I'm sure you can imagine, we use social listening as part of the CARE program with them. Normally when we launch a product, the conversation is really good. The sentiment is through the roof. People are happy. They're excited, especially when it has to do with coffee, because we all love coffee, right? Well, the AI triggered us to say, hey, something's not right. There's a lot of negative conversation right off the bat with this product launch. So we, the humans, dug in, and we found that the problem was, after owning the machine for a couple of weeks, they went to go try to change the filter, the coffee filter within the machine, and they couldn't figure out how to do it. So what's the first thing you do when you can't figure out how to change your coffee filter?
Well, depending on which generation you are, I guess you go to YouTube, you go and call them up.
Yeah, you Google it. You Google, for the most part, usually you're going online. How do I change? I'm looking for something. So we went back to the client. We were like, hey, where is the how-to on how to change the coffee filter in this machine? And they said, oh, it's on page 476 of the service manual. And we were like, no, you can't ask your affluent audience, your affluent customer, to go to page 476 of a Shakespearean novel and then try to fix the coffee machine. You need a video. It needs to be on the product page, because as soon as they Google that or try to YouTube it, there it is. And now you've stopped that negative conversation, right? We're not just talking about solving it for one person. We want to remove the problem as a whole. So once we did that, we saw negative sentiment drop, but we also saw positive sentiment go up by 86%. And what happens when positive sentiment goes up that much and that many people are having brand love about this product? Other people want to buy the product. Other people are joining the conversation and showing interest about the product. So my point there is the AI and the social listening, really important to flag us immediately, right? We wouldn't have probably seen that as humans quite as quickly, but it took the humans to create the creative solution. The AI didn't say, oh, and here's what you should do. We had to sit back and kind of digest what the problem was and come up with that creative solution. So that's another reason why I think AI is amazing, but it's not the final answer.
So when you say positive segment went up, was it causation by solving this issue it went up, or is it more correlated because people now had all these good things to say and forgot about this annoyance of the filter?
I think it was both, because what stopped happening, yes, we still, in the beginning, once we had the video up, we still had people coming through and saying hey, how do I, and then we could point them to, right, that video, which was another fix per se. But eventually that whole problem itself goes away. It doesn't exist anymore. So we're removing that whole part of the conversation, which gives way for more positive conversation. I think social is a spectator sport. And this is why it's so important to use social listening, especially for like crisis management, because once you get a person or a couple of people latched on to that negative conversation, all of a sudden you see groupthink and everybody wants to latch into that conversation. So using social listening to stay ahead of what's being said and to monitor sentiment constantly, so that if you can see like sentiment even going up maybe 5 points on a product, let's dig in and figure out what that is and if we can get it fixed before it turns into a free-for-all on social media where everybody wants to jump in and say something.
What is the impact of thinking in generations? Because you've been mentioning the different generations a couple of times, like Gen Z, the millennials, boomers like yourself. Sorry, Gen X like yourself.
I was like, wait.
What were you, a boomer or Gen X?
I'm Gen X, yeah.
Gen X. Yeah, no, so Gen X. So why I'm asking this and what I think is fascinating is like when you go into experience design or customer experience, we think in personas, we think in segmentation, we think about our ICP when we think about our go-to-market. So, and all of a sudden we're in social and we're back to generations. So what are we getting wrong when we think about the enterprise, when they think about their customer and understanding who they are? And channel is one thing, but what are some of the other things we're getting wrong about ignoring the generations?
That's such a great question. I mean, I don't hate me, y'all, but I think we love to latch on to stereotypes and assumptions, and we're not using the data. And so there's a lot of blanket statements that happen in social, right? Boomers use Facebook. Gen X is on Instagram. Gen Z is on TikTok. And yes, those are true statements as an average, right? But what happens at your company? Or I'll give you this example. What happens at the printer company that I talked about, our printer client, versus the appliance company, versus our credit union company? They have their own baselines. You can't go off of those assumptions, right? So for the credit union, a lot of their boomers are on social. They even are on Instagram. So if they were just going off of, social media tool company here's data about, 96% of boomers are on Facebook only, it doesn't work for them. And this is why that social intelligence person is so important. You have to know what your own data says. What's your own baseline? I can't stand blanket statements in social because it depends on your company, on the industry, on your buying audience. There's so many different factors that go into those segments and ICPs and channel of choice. And this is also why I keep saying channel of choice is so important, because channel of choice is its own thing. Anyone can choose to be on social. Just because I'm a Gen Xer doesn't mean I am going to be like, oh, well, I can't use social media because I'm too old. Well, no, that doesn't work like that, right? It's literally personal preference. So yeah, I just think we've got to stop getting away from the blanket statements and the averages and this is the industry norm. Because otherwise, it's the same thing people used to say all the time. Well, I'm B2B and B2B is not the same. Yes, it is. Now we know that B2B buyers use social media to make that researching and that's to research and make that purchasing decision just as much as B2C. So no, let's stop with the stereotypes.
If I am because I'm interested in the channel of choice. So you said any big brand could go in and figure out the channel of choice by focusing on the A and the R, the acquisition and the retention. So say, let's pick an example. I am a $50 billion industry giant insurance company.
Okay.
I haven't figured this out. We're going to go into this. How am I going about not only understanding the A and the R, but also working with because I have a customer experience function, I have a marketing function, I have a product function, working with my peers in those departments to create a holistic customer experience? Like, how should I go about, first and foremost, like finding the right channels, focusing on A&R, and then bringing that together? Like, assuming my comms team used to run social, I realized that's a mistake. We need to fix this. So now we're going to do things differently.
Well, it starts at the beginning. It starts at the top, I guess I should say, and then it starts at the beginning. So if I'm taking you on as a new client for my insurance company, as a part of that application process, I'm going to start to ask questions like, hey, where do you like to read your news? Where do you prefer to receive, communications from our team? That question's been there, not always, but that like, where do you want to receive communications? That's a very telling answer. But you can make it fun. I don't know why people feel like they have to be stiff. Like, personality does not equal boring, okay? B2B does not equal boring. But you could say something like, where would you prefer to see information about our brand? Social media, email, nowhere, advertising. Let them tell you, collect that data. This is another wonderful use for AI, by the way. AI can look at all of this data quickly and let you know, hey, based on all of these applications, here's what's happening. Now, let's say you're in the situation that you're in. You already have, like you said, kind of started things. You've already have social going. So we've got to start from the beginning with the applications and the intake with those people, yes, but we need to figure out with the audience we already have what their channel of choice is. This is where humans are so important, because you need to get on the phone with your customer. I ask my clients all the time, when's the last time you got on the phone? Like, talk to one of your actual customers. And if it's something beyond, like if you're like, it's been years, it's been 6 months, it hurts my heart. Because our businesses only run on customers. And you would be surprised at how much information you can get from those customer calls. And by the way, those customer calls, whether you're calling them just to check in, or if they're calling into the call center to talk about a problem, those are transcripts. Transcripts can also be fed to AI. Those transcripts and that AI can tell you, again, those top 3 problems that they're seeing, the top 3 good things that they're seeing, the channel of choice that they're seeing, right? It's helping you move faster. And then when I'm collecting all of this data, and hopefully I'm having those conversations on social, I can bring it all together. And this is where AI would come into play. So I'll tell you a little secret. We've been working on our own proprietary AI for a while now. And in regards to those AR conversations, especially with acquisition, what we're looking at across the board, not just on social, is the closed won data from those acquisition conversations. And then what we're asking the AI to identify is looking at the conversation. So AI is wonderful at NLP, right? Natural language processing. So it's looking at the conversations. It's looking at the acquisition, the sales support kind of back and forth. It's looking at the promo code that we used to close the deal. And it's telling us things like, when you use these words with this promo code and this product, you have a 10x chance of closing the deal. Does that make sense? Because it's filtering through all of these conversations and it's telling us like it's almost like consumer behavior and psychology and then social intelligence, other intelligence can be used as well, kind of mushed all together. And the AI is telling us like, hey, we're noticing this micro trend or this pattern, and this promo means you have a 10x chance of closing the deal. If I know those words and that promo code on that product are going to 10x my closing ratio, all my marketing messaging is changing, not just what's happening on social, right? Because now I know that just by using that language together with that promo and that product, I've got a higher chance of closing the deal. Does that make sense?
So let me play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
Right? Marketing would be the first to say like, hang on, we created that promo code. We're attributing all those closed won opportunities to us. Like that's
Wrong.
us driving in. Like
Yeah.
that's
No.
how it typically plays out.
I
Right?
know, but you got to
saying,
play
like,
fair.
No.
No. You can use that in your marketing messages wherever, right? Email, that's digital. But when we're talking about social, at least from our positioning, social care, they don't even have any of this stuff happening. So we're coming in, we're implementing it. Therefore, the attribution goes to our team. Now, you can use it on email. If we come back to you with this, this AI data, and you're like, oh my gosh, if we use, let's just use the printer. If we use a free ink pack with the printer and these words, we sell 10x more, well, then they're going to go send their emails. They're going to create banner ads and all kinds of other things with that language and that promo for that product. Fine. That's attributed to you. But over here on social, it's a whole different ballgame. Yeah. And then that's attributed to social.
Right. But it sounds like the principle is still the same. And I'm seeing that across the experience functions in many companies as well, right? They're looking at what are the successful customers, which conversations that we have from them versus like the ones that were not successful, i.e. churned or never activated, right?
Yes,
or not even got what they were sold in the first place. And they're comparing those and looking at the journeys that those companies went through, customers went through, and they're seeing like, hey, if they had this experience in the beginning, they're likely to churn because da-da-da-da. And you're doing exactly the same, but then from a social perspective, if I get it right.
Right. And that's a totally different way. I mean, this is what I'm saying as far as social has changed. What we're doing on social is so different. Our clients are such outliers. And they've been doing this, by the way. We've had this service for 8 years. So we've been doing this for 8 years. And I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, social care and social customer care started to become more keywords from some of the big players in the space. So they're 6 years behind some of these clients that we're working with. So they're complete outliers, which is amazing. But now I'm ready for other brands to start understanding this change in social and educating them to figure out how to get a program like this started. Because as you know, when the market's tough, like it is now, marketing is the first to go and the last to come back. And if you do have social teams, it's the social team before the marketing team. And so as a CMO or a VP of social, you have got to learn to start to figure out how to attribute what you're doing to dollars. And this is how you do it.
So what is the reason that, let's say, the CCO or the COO or even the CEO is taking an interest into this and says like, yes, we're going to do this. Like, what is tipping the scale? Like from
money.
Okay, we kind of are aware that this is important, but we don't know how to do it. You have like these wonderful customers that are really ahead of the game. But what is tipping the scale for an organization? Like, is there like a specific event that is happening or a PR disaster that is triggering them to do this? Like, what have you found to be like the defining moment to say like, okay, we got to do this?
Yeah, it's usually a disaster, unfortunately. And for the clients where it wasn't a disaster, but it was that corporate mismatch, right? Your employees typically work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 at a brand, typically. Social's 24/7. Those disasters always happen. I'm using a blanket statement now, okay? But they most of the time happen after hours, on the weekends, and always on a holiday. Your oven is definitely going out on Thanksgiving when you have 20 people in your house. That's just the way it works. And so they find themselves, I don't want to call it a disaster, but they find themselves in these situations where, their team is trying to cover it Monday through Friday. Well, they leave Friday at 5 p.m. A lot of that conversation happens over the weekend. They come in on Monday. They've got to do their list of things, and then they're jumping in to solve those issues. So you can see how they get themselves into a hole that gets very hard to dig out of. So I think that's number one. They start to feel the pressure of the volume of conversations. It's not a disaster, but they feel that pressure. They understand that they're not able to meet the volume of conversation that they're having. The other thing that happens is, social selling is kind of like a buzzword. And companies are like, yeah, social selling, but then they don't know how to do it. And so what we can come along and say is, okay, we have to set up this whole program. You have to agree to this whole program. And as a part of that, we'll beta test a social selling program with you through those whole acquisition and retention conversations. And then we can quantify. That's all it is. I think for the C-suite, once you can quantify what's happening, like you have X number of retention conversations every month. You have X number of acquisition conversations every month. On the printer brand we work with, they have actually 12 different product lines. 2 of their product lines had over 70% acquisition conversations happening every month. Meaning on those 2 product lines, which were a label maker and I can't describe what it is. It's like anyways, these 2 products, most of the conversation was acquisition. Well, guess what? Because they were only working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, dealing with the negative conversations, they had no idea. They were leaving money on the table, essentially.
So, but where were these conversations happening versus like
on
the
social.
9 to 5?
On social.
But are people like DMing them, or were they like threads
DMing,
on...
leaving comments on ads? Oh my gosh, here's a tip. If you're going to run ads, answer the comments, because those are usually sales questions. You would be shocked at how many times we have clients running ads and not paying attention to the comments on those ads. That just blows my mind. So yeah, DMs, on posts, on stories, leaving comments reactively. This wasn't even them going out proactively with social listening. So now imagine having that acquisition retention quantified reactively, then add in a layer of social listening. Now we've got our BIC brand industry competitors to listen to, and we get to jump in there. I'll give you an example. Epson. Epson had an employee who was not happy. I have this snippet. I use it in my training. The client came out on social and was like adding, Epson, I hate your ink. I hate this and that. This is stupid. I pay for the monthly subscription to your ink thing and I've had it. Like, they're upset, right? They're just letting it all go. Epson didn't respond. HP, their competitor, who's likely using competitor social listening, came into that and answered them and said, hey, so sorry this is happening. You might want to check out our program, and left a link. Now, none of those brands are my clients, so I can't tell you what happened, but I can tell you what would happen if that were me. I'd be clicking on that link and probably jumping to that competitor. And by the way, research shows that 76% of customers who don't get a response on social will go to your competitor. They're going to go get it somewhere else.
76%?
76%. It's Sprout Social. Yep. Their
That's
2025
insane.
Sprout Index, 76%. So I think I've proved the point, hopefully, that conversation is how to do social media.
Well, you're proving the point that we should work evening shifts and weekend shifts and holiday shifts, I think, because that's where those other 76% of conversations are missed.
Yeah.
That's insane. It's a good stat, though.
I'll send you the report if you want. I that way you don't have to. Sprout's not
Are
listening,
there
I hope, but I'll send it
between,
to you.
because you said like B2B and B2C is the same because the buyers are using social just as much as a person would do when they're in a consumer orientation phase, whatever, buying a product. But have you found that the trigger events, like for brands or companies to really build on this, are different in B2C versus B2B, or is it just the same?
I mean, yes. I mean, nuance. There's a lot of nuance, right? But I think overall, it's really just the same. Because even in B2B, those are buyers on the other side. Those are people using social media to research. Those are people looking at those conversations or engaging in those conversations. So, it's the same, but nuanced.
Brooke, this was fantastic. If people want to know more about you, I already mentioned the book, which I think is a great place to start. But what will be other places where they can find your content, your teachings, your courses? What would be the best place to engage with you?
Yeah. Well, my company is B Squared Media, and you can find our website at bsquared.media. You can find me on LinkedIn, Brooke Sellas. That's where I have a LinkedIn learning course now that's all about social care. So I can help you find that, or you can find that. Just DM me or message me or connect with me. I am so passionate about this conversation. I am so happy to help people become educated. That's why I partnered with LinkedIn for the LinkedIn learning course. I mean, listen, I think just try it. Do the audit. Just go out today and do the little AR audit that I talked about. Look at your social channels and write that down, and you'll see the story right then and there. You'll know what's in front of you. You'll kind of quantify it in a small way for your own brand. But find me, reach out, and I'm happy to help you get there.
Wonderful. We're going to put links in the show notes to all of these things that you mentioned. Let the record show that Brooke is not a boomer. Brooke is a Gen X.
Thank you.
So we also get that on record. Brooke, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, and that's it. Thank you so much for listening. If you found it valuable today, don't forget to subscribe to The Experience Edge on your favorite podcast channel, leave a review, and share it with your team. I'd be delighted. Today's episode was brought to you by Daydo, an AI journey management solution for enterprise. To have an edge on your business strategy and to know why your customers do what they do, visit daydo.com and explore more resources to accelerate your customer experience game. And remember, the journey to creating customer-centric impact never ends, and here's always a new edge to discover in doing things differently. Next week, new episode. Until then, keep pushing the edge, stay inspired. See you in the next episode.